Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of Duality. I'm here again on the wonderful world of weirdness with Roger from Roger Hanson Live, and we are delving into the dance that goes on throughout all history and all time between masculinity and femininity. And last week we jumped in with masculinity. We explored the concept of masculinity as an axis, and we talked about the core of masculinity being love. And then Roger brought to our attention the fact that even though these things are called masculine and feminine, it doesn't mean that women don't have masculine and men don't have feminine. We have this duality within us, and it's important for us to balance those things and to be able to use our feminine side and our masculine side in harmony with each other. And so I thought, because the conversation went like that last week, I thought that we would delve a little bit deeper into the feminine aspect, because the core of femininity is balance. So just like the masculine axis is this sort of, like you would imagine a metal column, right, that radiates from lead at the bottom, iron at the bottom, then lead, tin, all the way to the top to gold. And the purpose of masculine development is to move from the iron up to the gold, and so to rise up in status as you develop your masculine characteristics. The feminine aspect, the feminine axis is horizontal, and it doesn't exist as a thing. It's more like an energy field, and it was conceptualized as earth, water, air, and fire. And if you think about that carefully, you realize that it is the solid state, the liquid state, the gaseous state, and the combustion state of energy and of matter. And then you can see that femininity is a flow between states, between energy states. And you see in women you have these great emotional outbursts and emotional responses to the world, which are so important for a woman to be able to bring up her baby healthily, to be able to tune into the tiniest little emotional response in her baby. And yet, when she is not being a mother, that amount of emotions can really, really, really contaminate her life and her society unless she learns to balance those forces. And so that is what I mean when I say that the core of femininity is balance. To balance those energy flows in your life so you develop a stable emotional environment within which to bring up your family. And that is possible because you are attached very, very firmly, shall we say, to your masculine other, this solid core of metal that's at the center of your life and around which you flow. And so, yes, there is this amazing dance that we dance. And as Roger pointed out last week, it is a big pity that these words are masculinity and femininity and that they are tied to gender, because these concepts transcend gender. Even though we understand gender and we understand our gender roles in terms of these things, they are not masculinity and femininity in terms of gender. They're masculinity and femininity in terms of conceptualizing our universe, in terms of things that guys like doing, like going out there and building things and doing things and changing and achieving. And that's a part of Mother Earth. And then there's also the feminine, which is staying the same, the sun coming up every day, the earth going on, always a second chance every morning. So yes. All right, that is my introduction. Roger and I have had a really amazing talk so far. And so before I continue, before I jump in and ask Roger to carry on and explain more to me about what he was telling me about dualism and Zoroastrianism, I would like to introduce him, my co-host, Roger Hanson from Roger Hanson Live, who's also known as Infamous, who is a gamer, a game developer, a podcaster, a streamer, and a really good guy. So welcome, Roger. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. Such an interesting conversation we're having. So you were saying just before the show, you were talking about how Zoroastrianism has these dualities of good and evil, where good is not more heavily weighted than evil. That's very interesting.
It's interesting how they interpret good and evil when it comes to all that stuff. It really is. Before we get into that, though, can I say something about something we mentioned last week so that I can clarify?
Okay. Sorry.
Last week when we were having a conversation of love, I should have been careful about how I said that, because I made the statement that there's all femininity in love, and I was wrong by saying that. I should have thought it through, because love, like pretty much everything else, is everything has both a feminine and a masculine aspect. You know what I mean? So I should have really thought about that before I said that, because love has both the feminine and the masculine, like we do. Like everything on this planet, you know what I mean? They have both. So when I said that, I shouldn't have said that. That wasn't correct. So that's what I wanted to put out there.
Okay, cool. No problems. Yeah. Well, I think that one of the things that I've noticed about having these conversations is that we seem to have come to a place in society where we are battling to express ourselves. And we're seeing this reflected in our youth, which have these really big gender crises going on. So I think that what's great about doing a show like this is that we can put these ideas forward, we can have these ideas, and then later on down the road we can say, hey, hold up, what I used to think, I maybe don't think that anymore, or, I expressed that. So yeah, I appreciate that. I think that sets a really great tone for our podcast going forward. This is like a conversation of exploration. We're not experts, and we're not laying down the law. We're just people figuring stuff out and talking about interesting stuff.
And saying things without thinking about it.
That's true.
I said that, and I should have, like I said, I should have stepped back and thought about it before I mentioned it, because like you were talking about, out of love, you take care of your child and stuff like that, and you have responsibilities, and that's all the masculine aspects, and the nurturing and being receptive and all that. That's the feminine energy that you put into taking care of the child. You know what I mean? That's the duties of being a father or a mother, taking care of your child, making sure they're fed, going to work, things like that. That's all the masculine aspects of love. You do things out of love. So I should have thought about that whenever I opened my mouth, basically. So if you want, I could talk about Zoroastrianism.
Okay. Yes. Let's go on and talk about that a little bit, because I think that kind of backs up what I was saying about these concepts being bigger than gender. They're really big concepts that we're talking about.
Well, you've been coming up with some really good concepts too about ancient civilizations and the feminine aspects of their deities and their societies too. So like instead of talking about the dualism, I can actually bring up like the feminine and masculine aspects of Zoroastrianism for you if you want me to.
Yes.
That way. Well, the gender-based aspects of Zoroastrianism doctrines, they're multifaceted and they're complex. At times it's a contradictory study of the religious ancient history through its text is complicated by what they call the Avestan language roots, root nouns, and they're grammatically feminine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the religion's earliest practitioners began to anthropomorphizing abstract concepts, is what it's saying. And attributing biological and neutral gender to those concepts. So they're talking about biological or neutral genders to those concepts.
Okay.
Now, as a result, the divine and demonic spirits of Zoroastrianism display gender-specific characteristics that shape how devotees viewed their societies and the roles of men and women. So they began to do that even though their language was grammatically feminine. You know what I mean? Which to me kind of gives it known that originally Zoroastrianism was a feminine aspect. It had more of the feminine aspect of its religion. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it began to change to abstract concepts, and it started taking on gender roles, which characterized how women and men should behave in their society. Now, the basic doctrinal dichotomy within Zoroastrianism is between Asha, Arta, or Arda, which is A-R-D, and then A, or it means order, which equates to righteousness. Now, this opposes Draj, D-R-U-J, or D-R-U-G, which is also D-R-U-Z. And that equates to confusion, which equates to evil. So for them, they're talking about order and confusion as being good and evil. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So Asha is
interesting. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So Asha is grammatically neuter, whereas Draj is feminine or Draj.
Yes.
Okay, so confusion is the feminine aspect of Zoroastrianism.
Mm-hmm.
So you have two primordial eternal entities, which are believed to have chosen between order and confusion. Okay, one is the Spinta Menya or Menage, or the Holy Spirit, equated with Bor Mazda, and which is also the wise Lord or Creator. now regarded as God. Now, for making the religiously appropriate choice of Agra Manu, which is Ahriman, Ganag Manag, the angry spirit or destroyer, now regarded as the devil, for not deciding rightly. Now, the grammatical gender of Ahura Mazda and Agra Manu were transformed into biological gender as male during personification of the concepts that each represented and depicted as such on rock beliefs commissioned by Sassanid monarchs, which are that they were the ones that were in charge of the Zoroastrianist religious beliefs, the Magi, basically, which I'm sure you've heard of them, the three wise men out of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Those were Zoroastrianists.
Right.
So, so you have basically the confusion is the feminine aspect of Zoroastrianism, whereas order is the feminine or the masculine aspect, and that would be what they represented or what represented good, whereas confusion represented evil and disorder. You know what I mean?
Right.
So chaos, basically.
Yes. So can I say something, jump in here and say something? I've got a really fascinating insight about this from psychology. So our brain, in its storage system in our brain, it stores everything in categories, and the main categories the most primitive categories that it's got are yes, no, positive, negative, black, white, light, day. So what happens is because this is our physical storage, all the things that are stored under yes sort of get mixed together in our brain, and everything stored under no gets mixed together, right? So you think of these concepts like good and evil, night and day, light and dark, and you can understand how they're linked. But then you start putting things in there like male and female and good and evil. And what you find is that male and good get stored together in a man's brain, and in a woman's brain, female and good get stored together. And so we have these opposite conceptual memory banks in our brains between men and women, just because of the way that things are stored. And so this is one of the things that, like when I was growing up, it was called the war of the sexes, is that men and women are always complaining about each other and scoring points off each other. And the reason is the storage mechanism in our brain, that we actually store our data linked to different concepts according to, Anyway, so I think that's quite interesting because you're talking about how the feminine is linked to chaos and the masculine was linked to the devil, did you say?
The masculine was linked to order.
Was linked to order.
And the feminine was linked to chaos.
Yes.
And confusion.
And confusion, yes.
And that's how they interpreted good and evil. It was between chaos and order.
So interesting. And so what I was saying in my introduction was about how the masculine axis is depicted as being metallic and the feminine axis as being non-metallic. And so you can see that this categorization system that we have, it goes through everything. It goes like into plants, into animals, into morality, into everything, and you get these links between concepts. How fascinating!
When we were talking, I got a little confused there because I was saying duality when it came to Zoroastrianism, but that deals more into dualism when it comes to Ahura Mazda and I forgot the name of the other one. We were just talking about it too, but Drudge, I believe is what it was. And the thing about it is when we were discussing it was like with that the Zoroastrians didn't find like they did have the hierarchy, like Ahura Mazda was their main deity, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't good and he wasn't evil. You know what I mean? Good and evil were balanced, and there was just as much reason for evil, according to the Zoroastrians, as what there was good, and everything was according to balance. And Ahura Mazda balanced the good and the evil. You know what I mean? So the chaos and the order, basically.
Here's a question that we've just got in on our stream here from Jamie Jizzle. Jamie says, how do we continue to live through such horrific things on this earth? How do you think that a Zoroastrian like priest who didn't see things in terms of good being more important than evil, how do you think that they would advise people to live through horrific things on earth from that sort of dualism point of view?
From everything I've learned from them, I would have to say, now I could be wrong because I'm not a Zoroastrian priest or anything, you know, but I would have to say that the way that you live through these horrific things that are going on Earth is you have to decide for yourself what you want to be. Do you want to be good or do you want to be evil? Even though all these bad things are happening to you, you have to realize that can influence you. And what do you want your mindset to be? Do you want your mindset to be on a good, pure path, or do you want it to be influenced by these evil thoughts, this confusion, this chaos, or do you want it to be ordered and you know, good?
Yes.
You get to make the choice. Which path do you want to take? I could be wrong, like I said, you know, because like I'm not a Zoroastrian priest who knows, you know, had years of research in it, but I have researched it, and that's how I've seen most of them talk when it comes to that topic. There are horrible things that are taking place in the world, but those things are happening because it's meant to influence you, and you're the one who has the choice of if you want it to influence you or not. You know what I mean? When it comes down to it, it's what do you want to be? You know, through all this hardship, do you want to come out of it being a better person?
Yes.
Or do you want to cave in to the thoughts and the emotions that come with all those horrible things? You know, so that's kind of how I take it. I hope that sounds good enough.
And it really is a struggle. I think I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, like, I'm facing this big trip over to South Africa, and it's quite daunting, and a lot of emotional stuff is coming up. And we're doing this podcast, and I'm thinking about balance, and I've got these big emotions coming up, and I'm thinking about balance. And I'm realizing that this is sort of a daily challenge that we have, is to keep on always choosing balance. always choosing control and equanimity and being on top of things and being a better person.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of that thing that you say about good and evil being equally weighted and just as important as each other, it sort of means that it's just as easy to choose bad as it is to choose good. It's not sort of harder to do one thing or another. It's just a simple choice.
Now, I know that you've done a lot of research and everything into Buddhism and stuff, and I'm not for sure if you're a Buddhist or a Christian, or I know that you've said that you've been involved with it, right?
I was brought up a Christian. I've done a lot of studying into Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last 2 years, I have started looking into Buddhism, but not really into the religious part of it, more into the practical side, how to use it to achieve this sort of, nirvana is what they call it, isn't it? Sort of the state of peace or whatever.
I have a basic understanding of Buddhism. I really wish I knew more of it, but a lot of this sticks out to me when I compare it to like Buddhism, and some of it even into Hinduism is Dharma. And do you know anything about the Four Noble Truths?
Yes, I know the Four Noble Truths.
Okay. Now, could you kind of explain that?
Sure. So, the first noble truth is that life contains hardship, suffering, misery, stress, anxiety, like all the bad stuff. First noble truth. Second noble truth is we need to acknowledge that and understand where that misery in our lives is coming from. That's our duty, is to comprehend what it is that is causing the stress, anxiety, or misery in your life. And then the third noble truth is that once you know what's causing the misery in your life, there's something that you can do about it. And that you have a duty to do something to minimize the suffering in your life and the stress. And the fourth noble truth is that there's a way that you can do it. And the way that you can reduce the suffering in your life is called the Noble Eightfold Path.
Right. Now, can you go into the Noble Eightfold Path for me and kind of give me a feedback on some of that?
The Noble Eightfold Path is a way, it's multifaceted. You can see it at many, many, many different levels. But for me, it's a way that you can sort yourself out. You can make yourself see things clearly and get on with your life. So the first thing, like once you have comprehended your suffering and you understand where your suffering comes from, the first step on the Eightfold Path is to understand that you need to see things the right way. You have to have a clear perception of what's going on in your life. And the clear perception is that you need to see that pain is inevitable in life, but suffering is not. Pain is what happens to us in our circumstances. Suffering is when we dwell on our pain and we stay within our pain and we don't get out of it.
Right.
So when you've undertaken that, when you've understood that first step, then you are ready for the second step, which I think is, I don't even know if I know these very well. Is it to have the right attitude? No, I think it's to have the right resolve. I think you have the right view of suffering, and then you have the right resolve. And the resolve is that you need to suck it up from deep, deep down inside your soul, and you need to say, I am going to change my life, and I am going to do this, and I am not going to wallow in my misery. I'm going to resolve to be the person that rises above and does this thing. And when you've done those two things and you've got this resolve, then there's the next two things that you need to do, and that is to have the right speech. You need to, the first one of them is to have the right speech. You need to talk about your life correctly. So you need to take responsibility for yourself. You need to start looking at what you're doing, and you need to start making a plan, an actual verbalized plan on where you're going to go next. And when you've made that and you know what you're going to do, so it might be a list, or it might be a schedule, or it might be a 5-year plan, or it might be whatever it is. But once you have verbalized and articulated where you're going with your life, you then need to have the right actions to put that into practice. So you need to do things like get up in the morning and have a shower and brush your teeth and face the day and do the things that need to be done to put your plan into action. Otherwise, you're just going to have your suffering. So you've now got on your 4th step, and so then you need your 5th step. Your 5th step, I think, is to livelihood, right livelihood. You have to feed yourself. You have to take actions to make your home nice, right? That was in take action. Take action and do the right thing. And the next step after you take action is that you have to provide money for yourself. You have to have a job. You can't lay around and, like Confucius says, man who sits on hill with mouth open will have to wait a long time before the roast duck flies in. So you have to go and you have to get a job and you have to feed yourself. Or you need to dig in your fields and do your carrots or whatever it is. But once you're feeding yourself and you're taking responsibility for yourself like that, you need to know that you have to put in the effort. You have to put in the right effort to make this keep on happening. Because it's exciting when you first start getting going, but it doesn't stay exciting. And that's where you need to look back to the 2nd step, and you need to have that resolve so that you can put in this effort, this massive, massive effort that it's going to take for you to be a good, decent, respectable, noble human being, and not just one of the masses who don't care and who don't try. Once you've done all those 6 steps, you're ready for the 7th step, and the 7th step is mindfulness. Mindfulness is a technique in Buddhism where you train your brain to keep all these things in mind so you don't forget, like I'm always forgetting all the things that I ought to be doing. If you can get to the 8th step, then you keep these things in your mind and you don't renege on your responsibilities. You don't forget to feed the cat. You have that focus that is necessary for you to be a success in life. And if you have been through all those 7 steps adequately, and you've trained yourself and you've focused yourself and you've become mindful, then the final stage is that you enter into a state of right concentration. And right concentration is like that attitude that you need to have to be a successful person. It is the difference between being somebody who sits around immersed in their suffering and somebody who has the pain and has the hardship, but gets on the path and lives their life anyway. Okay, so that's totally my interpretation of it. I have
did a good job.
been studying this just myself, So don't take that as gospel. But that's...
You did a great job. And, you know, how you was talking about duties? You hit it right on the nose. Like, you know what duties are, don't you?
Obligations?
Karma.
Oh. Karma.
That's karma. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. When you say duties, you're actually talking about karma.
Right.
So,
yes.
Have you ever heard of RITA or RTA? It's spelled RTA.
No.
It's part of what you were talking about with the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the most amazing part about this with Dharma is everything you just explained was the masculine aspects of Dharma, okay? These are the things that you have to do. Now, when it comes to Dharma, with the feminine aspects, it's virtue and purification. That's it.
Wow. Okay.
That's it.
That makes sense. Wow. Virtue and purification. Right. Those are the feminine aspects of Dharma. Gosh, that's fascinating.
With all the stuff that's what gets me.
Yes.
You know, with all the stuff you just had and explained, that's all the masculine aspects of Dharma.
Yes.
So I just thought that, and see that blends into Zoroastrianism too, because they all come from the same beginning. They all come from Indo-European ideologies,
yes.
Mithra and stuff like that. So it goes farther back even.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how far back do you think it goes, Roger?
Well, back when we first started eating horse meat.
You reckon?
Yeah. I'd almost guarantee that it was believed back then. And that was the beginning. The first kind of animal that we actually hunted was freaking horse, because they were the easiest to catch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about an ancient belief that goes
mm-hmm.
a long way back. So with all that being said, you were talking about something too about the ancient druids and stuff like that before.
Oh, right. Okay, you have filled my brain with all these amazing things, and I'm getting a little bit distracted. So let me focus. Okay. Druids, Zoroastrianism.
If you want to, we can hold that off to another time, because you've actually did an excellent job on what you just said. I was like, that was pretty cool.
Thanks. Yeah.
And I think that was actually helpful for Jamie's question too.
Well, you know, I think that it's fascinating. What's been so fascinating to me about discovering Buddhist thought is that it hasn't been okay in our society to look for this I don't know how to say. When I was growing up as a Christian, I was told that in Christianity there was only one way, and it was the Christian way, and everything else was second best. So don't even look there. Don't even bother. Just stay with this way. This is the best way to do it. Just do it this way. And that sounded like a sensible argument to me. But when I discovered Buddhism, and I discovered there's this 2,500 years worth of study that isn't included in Christianity, but it is just as valuable, or maybe even more valuable in some ways, because Christianity can give you a lot of comfort in suffering, and it can give you a lot of feeling that there's a God there who cares about you, and that the suffering has a meaning somewhere down the line. And so you can get all this sort of comfort from the Christian mindset, maybe. But Buddhism gives you these ways that you can actually control your mind that Christianity doesn't really touch on. And it seems to me so sad that we have these divisions between ideologies. Instead of being able to draw things together and to be able to use the good from all things and to build us up, we have these competitions. Like, don't look to them, they can't help you. Or no, don't look to them, they're wrong in that way. Instead of being able to take the bits that are awesome and add them, and keep on your whole life adding more and more and more skills until you get, like, I think last week, one of the things that I was saying was that we mature when we fully are able to balance the feminine and the masculine within ourselves. And so it's why old people are wise, is because it takes a long time to be able to balance the masculine and the feminine. And so it's only a few old people that have actually got it right. So it takes a long, long time to understand and to learning is a lifelong thing. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I think you actually answered your own questions too at the beginning of the stream when you was talking about going over to South Africa.
Mm.
Like, you got all the answers right there. You just explained everything that you needed for your trip home.
Oh, Roger,
It came out of your mouth.
I'm really good at the theory bits of learning, but the putting things into practice, I'm looking at this trip to South Africa as sort of an internship. I've got to take this Buddhism that I've been studying for the last 3 years, and I've got to see if I can actually do it on the ground in a stressful situation, visiting my dying mother. So when we come back, we'll have another conversation, and I'll catch you up on that if it worked.
Now, on the Noble Eightfold, do you remember the fourth one that she was talking about?
Fourth one?
Yeah. Right
actions.
Okay, now, right actions, you was talking about, what was it? Just suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And suffering is something that you create yourself.
Right.
There's hardship and then there's suffering right now. Yes. Also apply that to hate and resentment. Okay. Hate is something that happens naturally. Everybody's going to feel hate. All right. Resentment is what you turn it into when you hold on to that hate and you allow it to freaking grow inside of you. So just remember, it's okay to feel hate, but that's a momentary feeling. Once hate goes over 6 seconds, it's become resentment. Okay, it needs to be taken care of the same way that you're talking about with the Noble Eightfold. And what's the opposite of hate? Love.
Acceptance. Love? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Love and hate.
Love and hate.
Yep. Two opposites can't occupy the same space.
Okay. Yes. So. That's something John's been trying to teach me recently.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go back to that thing that we were talking about, love. You were at the beginning. You said about how love. You saw the masculine part of love.
Mm-hmm.
So I was having this conversation with Rush of Waves the other day, and we were talking about. I asked him what love is, and it was so interesting because he said we talked about it, and we came to the thing that it was actions. It was that when you feel that thing that this person is in your care and you need to cherish that person, then a thing happens in you that you take action because of that feeling. And so love is that feeling that comes up, but it's the thing that you do. And I think that saying that the path is masculine and like the actions are masculine and these things that we do are masculine and love, it's all sort of like all these little pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together in my mind. And I'm starting to see this journey that I'm going on, this sort of pilgrimage back to South Africa, as almost being, well, I'm going on a masculine journey. I'm going on a journey of doing, aren't I? Wow, that's so interesting. So where am I as a female? What part of me as the feminine is inside that journey?
Oh, with what was being said there, that was the masculine aspects of love. Okay, like think of it like this: masculine is the left side of your brain. The feminine is the right side of your brain. Okay. Now, whenever you think masculine aspects of love, you're thinking the external. You're focusing on the external part of love. All right, and that would be the parts of your brain that's telling you to be grounded, analytical, be focused, supportive, and protective. That's all the masculine energy that comes out of being or thinking about the masculine aspects of love. But then you got the right side of your brain, which is the feminine side of your brain, okay? And it's thinking too. Now, what you've got there is the right side of your brain, and it's thinking of it's focusing on the internal parts of you, okay? It's thinking about, the nurturing, being receptive, being intuitive, things like that. So you have those two things going on. So when you go over there, you have to apply not only the feminine or the masculine aspects of love, but you also have to do, or the other way around, the masculine aspects of love. Not only that, but the feminine aspects. You have to be nurturing, receptive, be creative, try to be expressive and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Don't just go in there thinking that you have a responsibility and a duty and stuff like that. Be nurturing and show people that you care. And it's, I always say it's an inside job because there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? Don't just think externally, the outside and everything that's going on outside of you. You got to think within too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's a balance. It really is.
That is interesting. I was thinking earlier because, like I've mentioned to you, there's this sort of confusion and turmoil and anxiety that's coming up with this, like, it's 2 10-hour flights with an 8-hour stopover in the middle. So even if I was just going on holiday, just the traveling is stressful. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I think my computer froze momentarily. All right. So I've been thinking a lot about how I'm going to be traveling and how I'm going to be doing this. But I can see from what you're saying that there's a whole different level, is that I need to also think about who they are and how I'm going to respond to them. And that's going to be big because, this is going to be a big thing for me, going to my parents. You mentioned it in Old Men Talking the other day, where you said that it's very, very hard to start looking after your parents because they've always looked after you, and suddenly it's back to front.
Right. It's really a hard thing to do because you really have to look at yourself and look at your actions, like you were talking about. These people are basically they've regressed to where they're children. You know what I mean? And I shouldn't call my mom and dad these people, but that was my bad. But my parents, basically, they're needing somebody there to take care of them.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm the one that has to be that person to make sure that they don't fall down, make sure that they get to bed, and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And there's emotions that go on inside your brain that you could easily give into that aren't positive thoughts. You know,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I have a choice today. You know, what do I want in my life? Do I want to have the guilt and shame of being that person, or do I want to do the right thing? And in the end, be able to say, look, I was there. I did it. I did the right thing.
Yes. Yes.
You know.
Yes. Yes. And that's what I want to do. I think I've spent, I was speaking to a friend of mine. We're both sort of getting our lives together. And he rang me, and it's so lovely because he's got this new job, and he's a truck driver, and he's driven off, and he's on this mission. And I sent him a message and said, I'm stressing about going on my mission, and I'm so happy that you're going on yours, because I know somebody who's also off, doing that. And so, oh gosh, I can't remember why am I telling you this? Damn. 7 years. He says, oh no, it's been 7 hard years, but finally I'm getting out of it. And I said, oh, you're so lucky. It's been 18 years. It's been 18 years, Roger, that I've been on antipsychotic medications and on welfare and struggling and being a complete loser. I am so ready to do something right. I cannot tell you how, I don't know what, it's not excited, but how ready I am to succeed. You know?
Yeah.
I want to go there, and I want to be a good daughter, and I want to say all the right things. And sorry, this isn't therapy session. It's just
it's fine. It is fine. This is your show, and you're telling everybody. You're telling everybody what's going on in your heart. You know, that's what's important.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you're going to do great. I've always thought that you were going to do great. Even when I first met you, you just have something inside of you that's good. You know, and the thing of it is you need to believe that. You know, I already believe it, but you need to believe it. That's what the key is. You need to believe it. You're not a loser. I'm not a loser.
No.
None of us are.
No.
The loser is the one who gives up and lays down and never gets back up.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So you've been getting back up, and you got to remember that.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, so.
And it is important, like you say. It is important, like you say, to have that soft, nurturing, feminine part of the journey along with you.
But also have balance. Balance is the key. Yes. Okay. And remember, there's opposites to everything.
Right.
Okay. So if you have a negative in your life, look for the opposite. Look for the positive. What's the opposite of this? Anger. You see. What's the opposite of being sad? Be happy. Just be happy. You know?
Just choose it. Yes.
Yeah, choose to be happy. So you know what? I'm not going to make my day freaking crappy. You know what I mean? Just because it started out bad doesn't mean it has to be bad until the end of the day. I can start my day at any moment of the day that I wish.
Yeah.
All I got to do is look. I'm starting over. That's it.
It's amazing. Yeah. That's something Rush has just taught me. He was talking to me about, did you know that there's 2 nervous systems? You've got I can't remember, parasympathetic and a sympathetic nervous system. And the one set of these organs and things makes you get going. So it's like when you need to, when you need to run a race, or you need to be physically active, all this energy and everything, and your heart starts pumping, and your blood goes faster, and you pick up more nutrients, and you get more oxygen, and then when you've finished all that, you've got a different nervous system that clicks in, and it soothes everything. And so your heart rate drops, and your breathing quietens, and all the other things that happen. And you can control those reactions just like you can control your breathing. Isn't that amazing?
Yes,
like you can think to yourself, I want my heart to beat faster, and it will actually beat faster. Did you know that?
Have you ever heard of serotonin and dopamine?
Yes, I've heard of them.
That's some of the stuff that's taking place in the process that you're talking about right there.
Okay.
And meditation is really, really key to a lot of things, because like people don't realize that's not just like, well, you hear other people say it, I'm not going to say it, but they say that it's just that spiritual hocus pocus stuff.
Okay, yeah.
But the truth is meditation is also it's beneficial to you on a physical, healthy way of living. It helps you with your freaking blood pressure. It helps you with all that. So
incredible. And I've heard about meditation for years and years and years and years and years. And I've always been like, yeah, sounds great, lovely. And I've never tried it. And the first time I sat for an hour and meditated, it changed my life. I don't think I'll ever be, I don't meditate every day. Sometimes I meditate once a week. Sometimes I meditate every day. But, so I'm not like a hardcore meditation practitioner. But I just think that it's something that will be with me for the rest of my life. Because it works. Because I just had to try it. And I was like, wow, who knew? 2,500 years, people have been breathing because it actually works.
I'm telling you, man, there's something about it. If it works for all these people and they've been doing it for thousands of years, they must be doing something right. You know what I mean?
Something right. It's so good. Anyway, so I would like to add that to Jamie Giselle. Jamie, if you're still with us, I think that meditation is probably one of the most beneficial things that I have ever come across in terms of what you can do for yourself, in terms of self-care and self-help and building your strength and building your spirit, building your self-discipline and your self-determination. So, yeah, really, 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 really good tool. And on that positive note, Roger, I think that we should maybe wrap things up, or do you have any final thoughts for this evening?
No, I just want to say I hope the best for you on your trip home, and, let us know what's going on with you when you get back, and love you to death. So,
Roger.
That's all I got to say.
You are so wonderful. I am really sad to be having this break from these wonderful, wonderful live streams that we've been doing, but I'm so excited that I'm going to be coming back, and we're going to be just jumping straight into our schedule and carrying right on. So thank you so much for, making the show a possibility, and for all your encouragement and your wonderful words. Yeah, and I hope things go well with you, and I'll see you, and I'll see all the listeners also when I come back in 3 weeks' time. And I will be 60 years old, so I will officially be a matriarch when I return. So
there you go. We will give you a ceremonial, royal ceremony of whatever kind. I don't know what they do in England, so.
We'll make one up. We'll make one up for the wonderful world of weirdness. Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you want to do that.
for listening, and I'll see you again soon.